Hey everybody, welcome back. This is part 2 of a pro's guide to buying a playset online. We're going to jump right in here, but first a little fun fact. In the first video, part 1, I said playset 31 times. So the first question is probably the question I get asked the most, hands down, and that question is, are you single? That's not that. In fact, I've never been asked that question. So the first real question is, how much slope can I have in my yard? How severe can the grade be in my yard? Generally, the rule of thumb, and I took this from Gorilla Playsets many years ago, is they don't want to see more than 6 inches of variance in slope in your yard. Now, that's not the whole yard. That is within the physical dimensions of the playset. So when you're shopping around online and you see in the description the assembled dimensions of the playset, you kind of take the length by the width, lay that box out in your yard. If within that box you have more than 6 inches of variance in slope from front to back, left to right, you might want to consider having a landscaper professionally level and grade that area. If you hire professionals to install in your yard, make sure that they know the full deal about the slope in your yard. Ask them questions. They should be able to answer them. Just keep in mind that if an installer shows up, like say I show up, and you haven't been honest with me about the grade in your yard, if it's too severe, if that particular playset is not going to do well on that slope, I kind of reserve the right to kind of call it off. And that's, just for the good of your kids and the stability of your playset. A good installer, a good assembler, they probably have a few tricks up their sleeve to deal with slope over 6 inches, but generally we don't really like to push that envelope. All right. Let's talk for just a minute about your HOA, your all-knowing, always present, always watching HOA. Seriously, when you're going to buy a swing set, make sure that you go through the correct process with your HOA for getting it approved. The HOAs can be really different from subdivision to subdivision, but there are some common things, like they don't like bright colors, they like a lot of greens, they don't want to see the bulk of the playset from the road, meaning the main mass of the playset. Usually they want behind the house. Can't be too close to a fence line or a neighbor's property line. Sometimes you have to get your neighbors to sign off on the approval of the playset. Sometimes they don't want the playset to be too high. And then there are other neighborhoods that just don't really care. They're like, yeah, just go ahead, whatever. But make sure you go through the process, whatever the case. Don't with the HOA, because they will come and they'll like not return your emails and stuff, or not talk about your swing set project at the next board meeting. Probably about 5 or 6 times in the 10 years that I've been installing, I have actually had HOA board members stop me from installing in someone's yard. But one thing's for sure, you're going to hear what they have to say. Of course, this is not indicative of all HOAs. Some of them are very lovely. Let's talk warranty. Should you get a 5-year, 10-year, or a limited lifetime warranty when you buy a swing set? This is another very commonly asked question. The best play sets, which are also the most reasonably priced, usually have that 10-year warranty. Kind of see that across the board. You know, maybe or maybe not, 5-year warranties might indicate the quality of the playset. Another problem with 5-year warranties is you really have to read the fine print, because some of these 5-year warranties are kind of on a sliding scale, meaning every year that you own that playset over the 5 years, they're going to cover a little less. They're going to pay for a little less. They're going to help you out a little less. You don't see it very often online, but it is out there. Some playsets will offer a limited lifetime warranty, which is very good. Sometimes in even the better warranties, the playset companies are not going to cover wood that is in contact with the ground. Why? Because wood rots. I don't care what kind of wood it is, there is no magical wood that will not rot when it constantly comes into contact with moisture. But most importantly, have your playset installed correctly. Just take care of your playset. Keep up with the finish. Tighten the bolts. Take the swings in during the winter. They don't need to be sitting out there all winter when you're not using them. They're just going to collect rust. Another huge question here. Cost. How much do I need to spend to get a quality swing set? I have heard some other guys say that you have to spend at least $1,500. That's not totally wrong. I agree with that for some part. Then again, one of my favorite play sets, and this is just an example, but a Gorilla Outing 3 cost less than $1,000. I've installed hundreds of them. I'm never worried about installing it for a customer because I know it's solid, you know, and it cost under $1,000. But also, on the flip side of that coin, if you buy the cheapest swing set, something that costs, let's just say, $700 or less, and this is excluding good swing sets that are on clearance. If you pay a little price for a playset, especially if that little playset has all these bells and whistles, you can be guaranteed that that company did not put their money into making that swing set the safest, most well-built set that they can put on the market. I caution people with, especially older kids, 6, 7, 8, the kids that are already on the upper end of the spectrum for the swing set playing age. I caution those people against buying these cheap wooden play sets, because I've seen it time and time again. Your bigger kids get on those play sets and they just tear them to pieces. You know what happens with kids? If you keep feeding them, they keep getting older and bigger. If you're sales savvy, that's the time to get the playset, because not only will you save money, but sometimes you can take those savings and pay a professional installer, a good one, to install your playset for you. So the last really big one is, who's going to install this playset? Are you guys going to do it? Are you going to hire? I have an entire other video going through this on my YouTube channel. You should check it out. There is a time, cost, whatever this thing is right here, right? You have to balance that out. You have to, you have to figure out how much time in your life do you want to carve out the swings. Make sure that the swing set that you're looking at has swings with chain to hold the swing. Not only chain, but chains that are rubber coated about halfway up. They're kind of dipped in that liquid rubber and then dried. It's much more comfortable on the kids' hands. It prevents some pinching, and just generally the better play sets have rubber coated, thick gauge chain. Don't buy a play set with ropes for the swings. They're going to be dry rotted and probably broken within 2 years, guaranteed. Let's talk about the roof real quick. Should I buy a play set with a wooden roof or a tarp roof? This comes down to budget. The advantage and disadvantage here is that if you get a play set with a tarp or a vinyl or a canvas roof, probably about 3 to 5 years before you have to replace it. Now, the wooden roof looks awesome. Some HOAs require a wood roof. It's got the same 5, 10, 15-year warranty as the rest of the playset. Last thing, this is a good question that's not really covered much out there. What if we move in a year? What's going to happen then? Well, the good news is that a playset is not a permanent structure. It's not in the ground with concrete. In a residential setting, it's usually just sitting on the ground and staked to the ground. Yes, you can take the playset with you